The way to think about Streamr is this kind of BitTorrent for real-time data sharing. It's a P2P network first and foremost. One of the interesting things is it's any type of data, including any payload of data. So there's high payload data you can send through the network in real time as well, which leads to all sorts of use cases across DePIN, across decentralized AI. Most DePIN projects today are using centralized servers. Streamr is essentially trying to solve that problem when it comes to real-time data sharing. Actually, I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out personally for DePIN still to be using centralized servers in this day and age. You know, the technologies exist for decentralized serverless communications and messaging, broadcasting, and in data storage as well. So all of those protocols and networks now exist.
Hey Mark, how are you?
Hi Sina, yeah, great, thanks. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great to have you. And this is, the recording of the We Are DePIN podcast. It's so good to have you. And I'm joined with Mark and Adam from Minima. I guess
Hello.
before we jump in, it'd be great for you to do a quick introduction about yourself, and then we can jump into Streamr.
Yeah, sure. So quick introduction to myself. My name is Mark Little. My job title at Streamr is CMO and head of BD. So I'm very much on the commercial side of Streamr Network. My background is kind of entrepreneurial before Streamr. I joined Streamr about 18 months ago. Before that, I was a co-founder of a fintech based in London called Pink, which aggregated crowd wisdom data to make predictions on crypto assets. So that's quite a novel fintech. Before that, I worked in the consumer goods industry for just over 15 years and started my journey in crypto in 2016 when I was based out in Shanghai. Started going to some Bitcoin meetups and been around since then basically.
Very cool. And yeah, Adam, on the Minima side, it'd be great to introduce yourself as well very quickly before we move on to Streamr.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you very much. So Adam Filer, and I'm head of partnerships at Minima. And I've been in this role at Minima for the last 2 years, driving enterprise adoption. As we went to mainstream and started getting real traction, I've been involved in securing and driving the partnerships. My background previously before that, I was professor of nanotechnology at Stockholm Royal Institute of Technology and a CTO in a biotech company for 10 years, developing pharmaceuticals. Nanomedicine was what it was called.
And
So I
was going to say, so how did you two meet actually, Mark, you two together?
Yeah, so I actually met Adam's brother, Hugo, who's the CEO of Minima at ETH Denver. And we started having a conversation about what Minima are doing and Streamr technology. And quite quickly, it became apparent that there's plenty of opportunities there. Adam and I have been speaking sort of on and off for the last kind of 3 to 4 months. And that's the first time I've heard that Adam was a professor of nanotechnology. So quite impressed by that. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and interestingly, we knew about Streamr and Streamr knew about us before we met because several of our developers have been using the combined technologies for use cases, which we'll explain more later in the call.
That's very cool. I mean, yes, it's a big reason why the We Are DePIN podcast and community exists, because there's some amazing DePIN projects such as yourselves, Streamr, doing some great things. And it's a really good platform to sort of showcase what everyone is doing in this space because, it's so small. Collaboration is very heavy. So yeah, we're very excited to have you on the podcast. So let's jump into Streamr. I guess very, very quick, what is Streamr?
Yeah, so Streamr's a little bit complicated to explain. So let me start with just a quite simplistic analogy. And that is the way to think about Streamr is this kind of BitTorrent for real-time data sharing. So from a technology perspective, it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. And what I mean by that is essentially the way to think of Streamr is it's a P2P network first and foremost for real-time data sharing. So think sub 200 milliseconds. And the interesting thing about Streamr, or one of the interesting things is it's any type of data and including any sort of payload of data. So there's high payload data you can send through the network in real time as well, which leads to all sorts of use cases. So the other way to think about it, through the sort of P2P lens is as a mesh of data pipelines on top of the internet. And those data pipelines could be either one-to-many or many-to-many. And again, what that leads to is lots of use cases across DePIN, across decentralized AI. And we'll come on to talk more about those later, I should imagine. But I'll stop there because that's probably enough information to start.
And like, what is the key problem that Streamr is solving?
Yeah, so the key problem is that through the lens of DePIN, most DePIN projects today are using centralized servers for real-time data delivery. And if you've been in and around the crypto space for a while, you'll have heard this phrase that we're all on this kind of journey to decentralization together. And Streamr is essentially trying to solve that problem when it comes to real-time data sharing. Actually, I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out personally for DePIN still to be using centralized servers in this day and age. You know, the technologies exist for decentralized serverless communications and messaging and broadcasting, and in data storage as well. So all of those protocols and networks now exist. So yeah, this is extremely cheesy, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but we kind of put the D in DePIN, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of DePIN projects say the same thing,
yeah.
which is funny. Okay, cool. That's really interesting. But digging deeper into the use cases, so you mentioned there's a few different use cases that could come out of it. So what are sort of some key ones that you've seen develop sort of in the early sort of roadmap of Streamr?
Yeah, so across verticals within Web3, there's slight nuances. So first and foremost, we're Web3 infrastructure on a sort of broader level. One project that we started working with early on was Demo. So probably viewers of this podcast are very familiar with Demo. It's kind of the poster child of the current bull run and DePIN narrative. And they were actually built on Streamr from day one. So we gave them a grant. And essentially, you know, what they're doing is they're using Streamr to send data in real time from the relays or DePIN miners in the cars and the community's members' cars, from those cars up through their network or across their network from relay to relay. So what's a use case for that? Recently, we built a case study with WebStream of IoTex, and this was using ZK technology to anonymize car data, for that data then to be shared with automotive insurance companies anonymously and, you know, private by design and in real time. And so the kind of use case and importance of that is that the insurance company is getting real-time data based on car behavior, based on driver behavior, and of course it's in an anonymous fashion and privacy-centric fashion, which is really, really important on the community side. So yeah, I mean, Demo is probably our most prominent case study and example. Within that, when we go into the market and we start speaking to other DePINs that we're starting to work with, of course, there's that very obvious use case of real-time data sharing across and through a DePIN stack. But there's other use cases as well, such as network metrics. Node management is a big one. So if you have a decentralized collection of relays in a DePIN stack, then those relays need to speak to each other and coordinate so they know which relay is doing what at what time. Again, just going back to the centralized problem, most DePINs are using centralized solutions to do that, and Streamr's kind of solved that problem. So within DePIN specifically, there's a bunch of use cases there.
I guess like there's different elements to. Sorry, Adam, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
And I'll let you jump in. Because the way that you sort of described it is there's the way of doing it sort of in a complete centralized way. And then you mentioned that there's DePIN companies that use centralized aspects to sort of augment what they're doing. And then from what you're saying is we're sort of completely centralized. So what, across that scale, like what's the nuance that you guys have that sort of provides that additional benefit?
Well, yeah, I guess it comes back to being serverless. So this is the big point is that most of these DePIN projects, most Web3 projects are relying on these centralized instances. The problem with that is that data, and you know the premise of DePIN effectively is the value in the data. That data is controlled by a centralized server, a third party, a trusted party, and so we're undermining the trustless technologies of blockchain that we're all here build from an ideological perspective. So yeah, that's central to our kind of vision and purpose as a project.
Yeah,
well, that was, yeah, I mean, I was going to ask a similar question, and I think, I mean, as Mark says, I mean, this audience and all of the companies involved in this space intrinsically are in favor of decentralization, and I think it's worth spelling out, you know, the underlying benefits, because there are some compromises as well, of course. I mean, if you have a database and it's controlled by a single entity, things could be a lot faster and a lot more efficient. So there is a reason, there's obviously the need for a benefit, and that essentially comes down to the resilience and the immutability and essentially censorship resistance. So it is that taking this, as Mark said, taking the narrative that crypto has been spawned from, and now applying it to real world use cases. And a lot of DePIN projects have some of these aspects where they monetize the value of data, or they monetize, they pay people for taking part. But I think, to Mark's point, the underlying reason of having a decentralized system of supporting the data is for the immutability, the censorship resistant, and the knowledge that this data then can't be tampered with.
Yeah, and I think building on that point, and at risk of going off a bit of a tangent, but it's worth noting that we're starting to speak to Web2 non-native crypto companies now about Web3 technologies and the benefits of it. And, just building on Adam's point, when we start talking about sort of censorship resistance, we talk about a lack of a single point of failure. That's really, really interesting. Web2 companies that we speak to spend a lot of time in terms of DevOps and maintenance, managing servers, centralized servers, to overcome download times, and they have to build systems and architectures around that to solve that problem. When we start thinking about Web3 infrastructure and decentralized protocols, then that problem is inherently already solved. And we can talk more about security and privacy in a moment, but of course, they're secure by design and private by design through cryptography and encryption. So there's a ton of benefits there already. I think we as an industry have a job to really educate Web2 technologists about all of these benefits. And for a long time now, the question's been, okay, what is the use case of Web3? And through our sort of partnership discussions in the Web2 space, we're starting to uncover those and tease them out. There's another huge point as well when it comes to the protocol level of Web3 infrastructure, and that is there's a massive commercial advantage as well in terms of cost. So we're now seriously considering we are building gateway businesses, what we call gateway businesses, on top of Streamr Network and protocol. And what are those gateway businesses doing? They are abstracting away smart contracts and crypto tokens, which are highly volatile, and for anyone building in Web2 world, it almost makes it an impossibility to work with Web3 infrastructure. So we abstract that away, put it into a SaaS format, and make it very easy for Web2 technologists to use a Web3 infrastructure protocol like Streamr. And the commercial advantage that comes with that is huge, huge cost saving. So the business we're building is called Subcast. It's a video streaming final mile delivery business. And it's a magnitude of almost 10x cheaper than even some of the low-cost CDNs that the video infrastructure industry is currently using. So I think it's quite interesting because we're starting to see, the role that Web3 infrastructure, protocols, networks has to play in the real world. Mm-hmm. And it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I do want to ask one more question before we move on to the Minima, like how the collaboration sort of came about. But in terms of maybe a very, very short answer, when you're talking about the Web2 side of things, I do see in this sort of narrative, in this cycle, Web3 and Web2 are coming together more than they were last time. I think DePIN is a huge sort of player in that because, what does it stand for? Decentralized physical infrastructure. So physical, people understand it more. Now, if you were to, if there's any Web2 companies listening right now that are saying, Mark, how do I really get involved in this? What is it all about? What's the benefit for me going from, a Web2 mindset to a Web3 mindset for my business? What would you be saying to them?
Well, I mean, we have this conversation regularly, and we do kind of talk about the benefits of kind of Web3 versus Web2, as we've just been explaining. But the reality is that Web2 companies are also extremely busy and limited resource and small dev teams that have got a lot to do. I think it's our job as an industry to unpack it and to make it easy for them to use this technology. Okay, us that work in the Web3 industry, we live and breathe this day in, day out. We understand it, but it's taken years for all of us to understand it and to present it in such a manner that kind of makes sense and makes it easy to use. But frankly, we're still not there. The friction is huge. So, we need to think about more novel ways to do this and to democratize access to these fantastic technologies, which is kind of why we're embarking on this kind of gateway business strategy. Because really, Streamr, speaking specifically of Streamr, we launched mainnet a couple of months ago after 5 or 6 years of building. Our job now is about protocol adoption and getting as much data through the network as possible. I've been speaking to other Web3 infrastructure projects that are in a similar sort of place in their kind of roadmap and journey, and they're doing the same thing. They're building businesses on top. Go and speak to Pocket Network. They have now 6 businesses they're building on top of Pocket. Storage is the same. They're generating hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in revenue from these businesses on top. But more importantly, the underlying protocol and technology is being used, and that's exciting really, because we're seeing adoption really for the first time. Can I just make one more point as well, Sina? So in my mind, I kind of distinguish like Web3 infrastructure at the protocol level, like Streamr, from say at the DApp level, like a demo or a PowerPod or something like that. So they're consumer facing, right? So their job to be done in terms of democratizing access to DePIN technology is different. It's a B2C play, not a B2B play. So for those guys, the kind of job to be done is about, okay, how do you bring in normies? And Demo is a great example. That's starting to happen. I think they have 10 or 15,000 miners and users around the world now. And I actually sold one of our cars, like loads of cars, a family car, my wife's car last week. I live in Portugal now. I was a young family that came along to buy it, and the son was about 17 years old, just passed his test. So he bought this kind of car from us, and I started talking to him about Demo, and his eyes kind of lit up. And he's sending me messages like, how do I get involved? And I'm telling him to get in the community. And he's bought his miner, and now he's telling his friends about it. So it's happening, right, at the sort of DApp level. But that marketing and growth job to be done is very much different from Web3 infrastructure, which is I see as more of a kind of enterprise play.
No, I completely agree with you. And then Adam, on your side, when did you first find out about Streamr? What made you excited about them? And what gave you the idea to how can we collaborate with them?
Yeah, well, actually, the matchmaking was done by a community member and a very experienced auto engineer from Streamr Network, who had found about Minima, started using it, loved everything about Minima. And he is a fanatic and extremely interested in combining blockchain technology with mobility and anything that you can do with car data. And so he came and presented that he had actually combined Minima technology with Streamr to do exactly that. So we owe a lot of thanks to Streamr Network for basically showing that this technology works in comparison. And we do have a very complementary match because Minima is a compact blockchain. So what is special and unique about Minima is it runs embedded in devices. It's a mobile native blockchain, and it runs entirely in full on these devices. But so it runs on IoT, and we've embedded it in cars. But the one thing that Minima doesn't do by design is store everybody's data on every device. So you just store the data that's relevant for your own device. And when everybody stores that data, it collectively adds up to the entire blockchain of information. So therefore, Minima by design doesn't store and send a vast array of data. So that's exactly where complementary technology like Streamr fits in, because Streamr is designed for sending huge amounts of data very efficiently. So this is a perfect match of technologies where you can prove the authenticity of the data coming from the car in real time. You can time and date stamp it. You can hash it on a blockchain, proving its provenance. And then you can combine that with the streaming technology, where this data stream is sent to various channels, and the users can get that data. So that was the initial spark, and it's proved to be incredibly useful and valuable. So, and as Mark said, I mean, Demo essentially started this journey before DePIN was termed, but given that terminology, but actually it was doing exactly what DePIN is, which is a decentralized physical structure of communication, and interestingly for car data. So the automotive industry is one that is very applicable for this type of decentralized data streaming, where the data itself has huge value, both to insurance companies, to car manufacturers, to roadside infrastructure. And now DePIN, the tokenization of that data, allows value to come back to the users who generate that data.
And then what makes you, Adam, most excited about Streamr? Like, what's on a personal basis, what makes you most excited about Streamr?
Well, the thing that is so nice is it just works. Out of the box, it works. We have set up streams. We've got Minima data streaming over the Streamr Network. The concept, as Mark pointed out, this BitTorrent idea of sharing data is very important. And what is nice is that you can have this delegated access. So you make sure that just the data that you want is safe and encrypted, and it won't leak out, if you like, to others. So I think that this is absolutely a complementary or missing piece, if you like, to our offer. So that we're very happy to have started the work together.
And then from the community aspect, Mark, so you have obviously Minima that's already using Streamr, and then you're building a massive community. So it'd be great to hear a bit more about the community aspect and also how people can get involved.
Yeah. So being at the sort of protocol level and DePIN infrastructure, our community is made up of a number of different personas. So firstly, developers and builders. There's a number of resources for developers and builders in the Web3 space. Our docs are, I would say, pretty strong. I know our DevRel and ecosystem guys have been spending a lot of time on that, so that's a good place to start. But of course, the Discord community as well is super strong. And there's a bunch of very experienced developers in there who've been working with Streamr for some years. So if you want to get started, please go there. The other kind of persona we see a lot in the community is kind of node runners. Haven't yet talked about the role of Streamr nodes, but there's something called an operator node, whereby you can earn APY or rewards for relaying data in the network. And there's plenty of resources in the Discord and on our YouTube channel and on Twitter for node runners. You do need a little bit of technical capability. It's harder than it used to be post the launch of mainnet, but for anyone with any technical expertise, it's entirely possible. And the last person I'd say is the kind of token holder, or kind of, dare I say, token speculator or normie. And the role there with Streamr, if you want to get involved and help secure and decentralize the network, is to delegate your data tokens to operator nodes. And again, you can earn rewards for doing so. And yeah, jump into the Discord, and you'll meet members of the core team and other community members that have been there for years. So all there to help.
So they'll be earning tokens, but sort of what's happening behind the scenes? Because I understand the whole thing of earning money, but a lot of people want to earn it in a way of they're solving some problem, or there's a mission behind this. So what's happening behind the scenes when all that's happening?
Yeah, maybe I'll answer that by just talking about the tokenomics essentially, and what blockchain technology enables and realizes, how it realizes the vision of this kind of P2P mesh network. So the data pattern is something called publish subscribe. So if you're a developer that's sending data in Web2 world, you'll use a centralized company or service for pub sub, publish the data on a stream or a topic. On the other end, someone subscribes to that data stream in real time. And AWS and Google and more sort of niche pub sub providers all have these sort of cloud services. And through blockchain technology and smart contract technology and the system of smart contracts, we take that centralized company out entirely. And on the demand side of the network, you've got publishers, people that want to share data. And what they'll do is create what's called a sponsorship contract, and they'll put the native token into the sponsorship contract. On the other side of the coin, the supply side, the operator nodes, they come and honor that sponsorship contract. They offer up the relay power of their node, and they earn data tokens as APY from that sponsorship contract. So that's essentially how the tokenomics work, and that's how people get involved in Streamr and support this kind of vision of decentralized real-time data sharing.
Mm. And what makes you most excited about Streamr, Mark? Like where do you see Streamr going into the future with both, what's happening within the team, but also how the market's changing?
Yeah, so just to reflect on Streamr and its journey, it's been kind of 5 or 6 years in the making, long before I kind of was on the scene. And we launched mainnet in kind of March time. And it's a pretty incredible technology. It's fully permissionless, decentralized, etc. And it's the first to do this ever. So, I mean, I joined the project because I wanted to join a project with really strong technologists with a great product. And that's exactly what it is. But now we're transitioning to this kind of era of protocol adoption. And the number of people that are joining the team in order to support that mission. And if I look 5 years forward, then what does Streamr look like? I think it looks like the de facto protocol and network for real-time data sharing for all of Web3 and the future decentralized internet. Has a super clear role there to play, and that's the role we're going to play. And in my opinion, we've kind of achieved product market fit. We're getting a lot of adoption within Web3, especially in the DePIN sector. And yeah, it's the early stages of adoption, but we're on the right track for sure. And then the second piece of it is I think these businesses are going to be built on top of Streamr in the PubSub space. I mean, PubSub is an expansive kind of category. There are many use cases. So we're building this video streaming final mile delivery company. We're looking at secure and private military communications. So we're speaking to military agencies about this now. And there's a bunch of others as well. And what I'd say to the community or anyone watching this, if you're an entrepreneur or a builder and you want to build on top of Streamr, then please reach out to me, reach out to the core team, and we'll try and help you.
And then the same sort of question for you, Adam, when it comes to development of Minima, how does, like, from Mark's answer as well as ideas that you have, where do you see the collaboration becoming more deeper rooted?
Well, it's So Minima at its core is providing a record of data provenance. It's providing the ability to be able to trust data coming from any device. So we are now looking at really the expansion of IoT smart devices, so connected sensors across vast industry real estate. And so the combination of being able to trust data, sensor data, trust information coming from people's phones, from cars, from the local hotspots, combining that with being able to use that data in a good way, I think is going to be incredibly valuable. And similarly, it is all about getting developers, getting people to come and build, coming to use the technology. And we, similarly to Mark, have developed a enterprise gateway solution where it's almost plug and play. You simply say, what signals do you want to see? What are the events that Minima are doing that triggers an event? And then you can use that data. So it is, we're on very similar journeys. And therefore, I think this complementary technology is just going to expand the use cases.
Mm. And I think we're pretty close to wrapping up the podcast. So Mark, I would love to ask you, because I want to ask everyone that comes on the podcast this, what excites you the most about DePIN? And the cool thing about Streamr is that it's not one specific use case. So you can give a real sort of, you've got a real good lens where you can sort of see and predict where the space is going. So what excites you the most about it?
Yeah. Couple of things. So I kind of got into crypto in the first place and Bitcoin because I have an economics background. Like many, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, don't get me wrong, but like many of them, I'm kind of frustrated with the way that money is manipulated nowadays. And I think this is leading to the kind of downfall of capitalism as we know it. And I think we need new models. And I think what's really exciting for me from an economic perspective is that DePIN, really, when you think about it, is redistribution of power to the end user so that they can control and own and monetize their own data, their own personal data. And I think as we go forwards into a world of data that's data-centric, then it's so important for that to happen. And blockchain is the technology, and DePIN is the technology or technologies that will help unlock that, that will realize that. And it's going to take a long time, right? This is a multi-decade transition, I think. Probably everyone, you guys have probably been in crypto for as long as we've been here for coming up to 6, 7, 8 years, and still it feels like we're early. It is going to take a long time. So yeah, I think that's what really excites me, is just this new ways of doing business that are kind of more ethical, and through that we're going to bring in the sort of normie crowd into crypto for the first time. This could be the use case that brings in lots and lots of people.
Yeah. What is your favorite one use case of DePIN? I mean, I know you mentioned the data, but maybe one sort of a bit more novel that people haven't thought of.
Yeah, I'm going to name drop another project that we started working with recently called Ator. I don't know if you've heard of Ator.
Yeah, I've heard of Ator.
Love Ator. I've met the guys actually in East Denver, very credible team, and they kind of come from the Tor community. So if you're not familiar with Ator, they're onion routing, privacy by design again, and built through the tokenomic models of DePIN, and they're building a much better solution than Tor. If you understand Tor, then you know it's kind of flawed in a number of ways. And I think they're going to be the helium of this bull run. So that one's quite an interesting one. Got my Ator miner on the desk here. So there you go.
Wow, look at that. All right, nice one. We're gonna wrap up. Unless there's anything that you want to mention, Adam, I'll wrap up there.
No, thank you. That was good. And as I said, watch this space for more news coming out from the projects that we are doing, both individually, but also importantly as collaboration. So it's been, I think DePIN in general, just to take up that point, is what's interesting really is it's actually building a community where people are collaborating. I mean, a few years ago there was you had your favorite protocol, and people were very keen to say one protocol is better than another, and maxis in all aspects. But DePIN is really showing that this is a collaborative environment now. So you're choosing interesting tech to solve real world problems.
Yeah, I think, just to wrap up again, I think that's a super important point, right? It's this kind of composability of DePINs. So by working together, we can build solutions that centralized Web2 companies, they can do it, but it will take them a lot longer because they have to build multiple technologies in order to achieve that. And personally, it's one of the reasons that I love working in Web3 is every time you pick up the phone and speak to another Web3 project, it's like, okay, we're Streamr, that's fantastic. Then you find out what they're doing, and quickly you start seeing these collaborations. And, we're working with Minima, and Streamr's working with Ator, and Minima's working with PowerPod. We're working with PowerPod. Demo are working with PowerPod. There's all this overlap, which is ultimately going to result in a much, much stronger ecosystem if we all kind of build it together.
Yeah, it's what I like about DePIN specifically as a sub-segment of Web3, because if you sort of zoom out, you do have still Solana versus Ethereum. You still like that narrative still exists, right? And you do get maxis in each one being like, no, this is better, this is better. So the reason why I like DePIN is because that collaboration is very, very strong. Again, big reason why this podcast exists in the first place. So yeah, Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure talking with you. How can people stay in touch with you and what Streamr's up to?
Yeah, you can follow Streamr on Twitter at Streamr. And myself, I think I'm at Mark_little2 on Twitter. There's a Streamr Telegram channel. There's the Discord. Go and check out the Discord. It's all in there. And there's a YouTube channel as well. So yeah, plenty of social media channels to follow us on. And hope to see any viewers in the community soon. All
right, fantastic. Well, thank you again, Mark, for joining me. Adam as well. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm sure we'll chat very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sina.
Bye.